Appearance on Dion's Daily Dose does not imply endorsement from or by any candidate or guest. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed by Dion Bergeron or Dion's Daily Dose are his own and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of any guest. Material and information presented is for general information purposes only. The Dion's Daily Dose name in all forms and abbreviations are the property of its owners, and its use does not imply endorsement of or opposition to any specific organization, product, or service. If you'd like to support the show, please visit our Patreon at patreon.com/Dion's Daily Dose.
All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Dion's Daily Dose, which, until I come up with a better name, that's what I got. That's what's on all my graphics and everything, so, love it, don't, whatever. So today, we are joined by Joe Haney, which you prefer Joe, right, rather than Joseph?
Yeah, Joe.
Okay, great. Joe Haney, he's running for LaPorte County Commissioner for District 3, which is currently held by Dr. Vidya S. Kora. Long time he's held that seat, hasn't he?
He's in his second, career politician, in addition to being a doctor. This would be his third term as county commissioner, but he has held other offices prior to that as well. So I'm trying to think if this would be his fourth or fifth term overall for the various positions that he's held in the past.
Right. I know he was coroner.
He's been entrenched in the system for quite a while.
Yeah, he was coroner for a while.
So he was coroner as well on top of that, and I believe the council as well for one term. So he's served in some aspect of county government here for, I guess, decades would be an appropriate way to put it.
Wow. Yeah. See, I remember. I know Dr. Kora from my mother. She used to see him when he had his office on Franklin Street down there by Wendy's. There's a little office there, and she used to go and see him all the time. That's the only interaction I've ever had with him. But I remember seeing his name all over the billboards across Michigan City for years and years for different various positions. So you're what made you decide to run for county commissioner?
Sure. So over the past several years, there's been several issues that have come up that have rung true to and really resonated with me since I moved here. One issue was about 5 years ago. There was an event/incident that occurred here, and one of the things was I went around to one of the neighborhoods that's right here by me, and we wound up gathering several hundred petitions. Signatures for a petition, and presented it. And one of the things that I found while I was going around was that there were several people in these neighborhoods that while they supported the petition, they didn't want to put their name on it because they were scared of repercussions. So they were scared of either themselves or a family member being impacted because they worked in some facet for the county. So that was one of the first really peeks behind the scenes, so to speak, of what's going on, what has been going on here in the county, that really, opened my eyes to what was going on here. They say that, you may not be interested in politics, but politics is interested in you. And I think that's where we're at here right now. I saw that happen, and it really upset me. And then from there's been other things. There's been trying to create a county code officer, enforcement agent to go around, measuring the height of, it got so far as to be ridiculous that every single square inch of the county would have to be mowed within, below 8 inches. Can you imagine being out on your farmland and having to mow the strips in between fields to 8 inches? It's just these absolutely ridiculous things. The people who are, especially the Democratic controlled leadership, the president and Vice President Kora of the commission, they are so out of touch with the county. It's like they think the entire county is some sort of giant subdivision with an HOA, and they do not understand. LaPorte County is one of the largest landmass counties in the state of Indiana. It has the second most, or largest amount, I should say, of roads in the state, second only to Marion County.
Wow.
So this is a very unique county here. It's very diverse, and you cannot treat it like Michigan City. And even if you did treat it like Michigan City, even for all those different outliers, then you're looking at ruining a lot of businesses there as well. I mean, it's what's happened in Michigan City. A lot of what happened under previous administrations there was just disastrous. And you look at these things and you see where they fail in places like Gary, Indiana, and then you see them try and bring that either here to a city in LaPorte, in city in the county, or to the county at whole. And you look at that and you just scratch your head. You're like, it doesn't work. But yet here they are trying to do that here. So that's what really was the impetus for me to get started in this, and then trying to champion some of these movements as they've come up. Just the feedback from the community, people kept saying you should run, and I was approached. I was actually approached to throw my name in the ring to run this time around, and I accepted, and that's how I wound up on the ballot now. I think it's time for a change, and I believe I understand the issues much better than people who are especially Dr. Cora.
Right. Okay. Do you feel that the people in LaPorte County, for example, have an understanding of what the commissioners kind of do? Can you hear me?
I'm sorry, you're breaking up a little bit.
Okay, hold on. Let me try that again. Is that better?
Unfortunately, it's breaking up a little bit.
Okay, there we go. Is that better?
It's like there's a little bit of latency in the connection. Yes.
Okay. Sometimes the microphone gives issues. I've noticed. Might have to replace this one. Do you think that LaPorte County in whole?
I'm not sure if you can drop maybe if you drop the quality of your video, if you still keep the audio quality up, if maybe that will help.
Let me try this for a moment. Hold on.
Sure. I believe you were asking about if you understood what the commissioners do.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So the commissioners are kind of the custodians of the county, if you will, and they've got they control writing of the ordinances, county expenditures, which of course are then overseen by the county council. The county council has a final say on expenditures in the county, and authorizes the spending of the money, but it's the commissioners who would make that initial decision and then go and get permission from the council. So when it comes to ordinances, highway, for example, it's a road, infrastructure, things like that, that all falls on the county commissioners. And then the county commissioners, in addition to that, are also sit on some of the various boards as a representation of the commissioners on some of the various boards, so like the Board of Zoning Appeals, for example, or sewer, things like that.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that, because before I kind of got into the whole politics arena, I really had no idea what the commissioners did. I actually had to look it up, and then learning about it, I'm like, wow, they actually are a critically important part of the infrastructure of the county. And I think a lot of people have a flawed understanding of it. So it's good to bring, if nothing else, it's good to bring awareness as to what these various positions do and how important they are in the day-to-day operations of the county.
Oh, absolutely. They're extremely important. The disposing of county property, acquiring or disposing of county property, for example. They also do things like help set budgets and things like that for the various departments. The department heads will come before the county commissioners and request various budgets, and then those have to be approved by the commissioners, and then again approved by the council. So there's a ton that goes into it as far as the commissioner side of it is involved. It's one of the more important, probably second only to the sheriff. It's the most important position in the county, and it's something that shouldn't be treated lightly. And I really wish more people understood what the commissioners do, and I have to say, from many years back, I didn't fully understand that as well. As a lot of these issues cropped up, it's up to the commissioners to safeguard the people in the county, especially those in the rural areas. It's unfortunate that we've seen people who, their homes are in I'm not saying that a county commissioner couldn't live inside a city. I live outside a city. I live, right next to Door Village, which is just south of LaPorte, the city of LaPorte. But when you have a commissioner, for example, who's lived his entire life in cities, and then he has another home that's downtown Chicago, you're looking at things like that, and these are people who are so out of touch with those of us who are in rural areas that it makes it very difficult for them to even be able to relate. It just like the ridiculous ordinance about every square inch in the county had to be mowed within 8 inches. I mean, could you imagine? Farmers,
Right.
But myself, I own a very small farm, out here. And, could you imagine that, 500 yards off the road, my back property line, which abuts up to hundreds of acres behind it of farmland. Can you imagine me having to go back there 500
Right.
yards off the road and mow that?
Right.
It's ridiculous, and it's systematic when you went through that entire ordinance. It's a multi-page ordinance, and of course, the one of the things that I can't stand from politicians is, we pulled this from another area, or it's a standard,
Right.
and it's ridiculous because these are one of the county ordinance. I actually ran some of it through a simple Google search. I just copy pasted it in a Google search, and I found it out of some city ordinances out of a small city in Illinois. It's not even a county that they pulled this from. They just did a
Right.
copy paste on most of this stuff. Which begs another question: why are the county commissioners paying someone to have ordinances written that are virtually copy pastes?
Right.
And I don't even know if at all they were really even vetted beyond a copy paste. It's ridiculous to me. There's such a lack of oversight. That's a huge problem. There's zero oversight. We have county websites for getting hacked and for ransomware, and yet no one loses their job over it.
Right.
It's absolutely ridiculous. And these are things that are warned about. I mean, these are things that happen. These are also things that, if for the IT administrators in the county, that the FBI sends out warnings about these different hack scams that are going on, and to just let it go, it's insane. And all these things transpired under while Dr. Cora was either commissioner and or vice president of the commission and had a hand in all this. It's disturbing. And is it that he's too busy? Is there some level of incompetence where he just doesn't understand? I'm
Right.
not sure. He may very well be an excellent physician and doctor, but when it comes to matters like this, I think he's completely out of his league, and I think he's shown and proved that over the last roughly 8 years.
Yeah, that's one thing that I've seen too is, and it's in all levels of the government, from federal all the way down to local. These laws that get passed that have absolutely nothing to do with the area that they're for, like the one you talked about, this 8-inch ordinance, to even think that someone could cut hundreds of acres to do that. My cousins own a farm in Rolling Prairie, and hundreds of acres. I think it's 300 acres. Really? I mean, really?
Oh, yeah, and I mean there are hundreds of acres of county-owned property, or at least thousands of feet of road frontage that weren't even, at the time the ordinance was introduced, weren't in compliance. So the county isn't even wouldn't even, number one, wasn't in compliance with it when they introduced it, and I think it would have basically been impossible for them to ever for anyone to be in compliance with it. Which then begs the question, and the grass is the most easiest one people can relate to, no matter
Right.
whether you live in a subdivision, condo, whatever. It's very easily relatable to anyone. That's why I picked that one thing. When you look at all these other things that stack up with it, it begs the question, well, if they know you can't be in compliance with this, then they're going to have to make selective choices as to who they're going to actually prosecute for this, who they're going to fine, right? So looking at $500 for the first infraction, then $1,000, then $1,500 for the third infraction. It's really crazy. And then, of course, obviously, you come to the other side of it, where you're looking at being targeted by someone politically for voicing your opinion against them. And
Right.
one of the things that really got me really riled up was after I collected those petitions, I presented them to the commissioners meeting, and several dozen residents went down with me. 3 days later in my mailbox, I got a letter from the zoning board, which was dated the day after I presented all those petitions. And it was the zoning board accused me of operating a shooting range on my property and told me I had to shut down immediately and I was in violation of all this stuff. It was ridiculous. And, no one had ever complained. I contacted the sheriff, Sheriff Boyd, who was, he had just been in office, I think 2 years at that point. Contacted Sheriff Boyd and I spoke with him, and he told me no. To my knowledge, the department's never had any kind of complaint against you, for shooting out there. And then I went ahead and I went back to former Sheriff Molinar, who was actually a neighbor of mine who lived diagonally. And he just lived, a couple hundred yards away. And he said, I never had a problem with you shooting out there when I lived there. It didn't bother me either.
Right.
So, obviously this was a direct response to that. And of course, I called up the planning commission and I spoke with the lady down there. And interestingly enough, when I spoke with her, it almost seemed like she didn't even realize it was legal to shoot on your own property in unincorporated areas of the county. That was another eye-opening conversation.
She probably didn't know.
Yeah, that just blew my mind. So needless to say, I still shoot safely on my own property, and no, the safe backstop and berm that I created to shoot in to contain my rounds and be a responsible gun owner is not a shooting range by state statute definitions, and it's for me, and I use it myself. And occasionally, when my dad comes to visit from out of town, he'll shoot with me, but it's the stuff that I've seen over the last several years in this county it just blows my mind that this is in any way acceptable.
Yeah, absolutely. So what would you say kind of about yourself that people could understand, who you, Joe Haney, as a person are, your background, stuff like that?
Sure. So I own a small farm just south of LaPorte. We grow crops on it. This year we're going to have corn again. Last year was soybeans. I'm a husband. I've been married to my wife for 18 years, coming up on 19 years. We have 3 daughters. What else? I own a small business.
Okay.
I do consulting work in the medical field. Prior to that, I was a clinician, and I was the auto transfusion manager at the University of Chicago Hospitals. I spent almost 8 years there working with the transplant team. I also spent 10 years in the level 1 trauma team in Christ Hospital. All while living, in Northwest Indiana. Never lived in Illinois. And I don't want to live in Illinois.
I was about to say,
the commute did started to drag most recently, and that's why I went in some of the consulting work. And that's allowed some more flexibility for me, especially as raising my girls as they've been getting older. That's done a lot. Part of my work as auto transfusion manager is not just managing the staff underneath me, but also developing clinical procedures and policies. I'm sorry, all right, hopefully that didn't affect the stream there. I hadn't moved the mouse and it went to sleep on me.
Right. So the lighting was the only thing that happened. It's just a little bit darker.
All right. Managing people, managing capital equipment, disposables, inventory levels, the policies and procedures for the processes that we did there in the operative suites. I think that gives me a good grasp on not just managing people, but also equipment and disposables in a very time-sensitive environment in which lives were literally on the line for the work that we did every single day when we were in the operating room. I also developed I also helped develop what's become known as the bloodless medicine program. So for certain patients who have an aversion to donated blood, bank blood, for example, such as perhaps some in the Jehovah's Witness communities,
right.
I should say, who for religious reasons aren't allowed to take bank blood. You can actually process their own blood in a machine that's colloquially known as the Cell Saver. There's a number of different companies, a number of different names of them. Anyway, we can process that patient's lost blood during surgery and clean it and give it back to them right there at the bedside. So
Wow.
Really huge way. We started washing bank blood for liver transplants. We were one of the first places in the country to do that, based off some preliminary data we saw out of Europe, and that's become a standard of care for a lot of those as well, to be able to wash a lot of the bank blood preservatives and stuff out of, and any of the dead cells that were lysed during the process, to wash those out so that the new liver wouldn't have to process that, with all the other load that goes on transferring a new liver and getting that back up to speed. So I think with that, I have a really good management skills, which is really what you need in county commissioners, to be able to manage all these different departments. You have all the department heads reporting to you, and you need to manage these things. And then going back prior to that, I've done a lot of different, donated my time in a lot of different ways. I was a volunteer firefighter and EMT in the past as well, and I've done some other things, such as helping with some various homeless programs as well as animal rescue groups.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that. That is that's amazing. Like, some of the stuff you talked about is incredible. I didn't even realize that you were involved kind of with the whole bloodless transfusion, or the part that where it cycles the patient's blood itself. That's incredible.
It's when you look at it, it's actually pretty simple technology, but it's really revolutionized and changed over the past. It was something that was originally looked into and kind of started the entire process back during the Vietnam War. There was such demand for blood, and then it slowly grew, and then as technology advanced, made it more practical and economical. It's just expanded exponentially in the past couple decades.
That's awesome. That's incredible. So what sort of changes would you like to see in Northwest Indiana in general, but obviously LaPorte County in particular yourself?
Sure. I think just some competency in dealing and in dealing with public trust. It's a position of public trust, and there, one of the things that really jumps to my mind and really illustrates just a lack of regard for the citizens, for their money, when it comes to expenditures especially, and dealing with property and making money, and how people feel about things that are important to them in their community. Here in LaPorte, there's a building that's known as the county home. The county's owned it for well over 100 years. It's a historical building. It's something that should have been put on the historical register many years ago, and it was suggested to the county numerous times, and they over the past roughly 8 years, and they never did. And obviously we know why now. The county home sold recently, back in February. So the county home and the 5 acres it's on, which is prime real estate right on State Road 2, just outside of the city limits of LaPorte City. It sold for $50,000, and there was one bidder in attendance at the auction, one single bidder. There's been a lot of accusations thrown back and forth. Was it? I try and subscribe to the easiest one, that incompetence explains it most easily. Was there something more to it? I don't know. I don't have firsthand knowledge of any of that. But when it comes down to the sale of this property, the ball was dropped on so many levels. Just a couple years ago, there had been offers made on that property of $600,000, $700,000 plus dollars.
Right.
It sold at auction with one bidder for $50,000. So the county commissioners meeting leading up to the final sale before this, the Commissioner Brzezinski was not present. He was out of town on vacation that day, and for that meeting. And Commissioner Cora, my opponent, introduced a motion for a boundary survey for the property, and he phrased it. And you can go back and watch this online. It's all on the public access website. You can watch the meeting. And in this meeting, he said, for the potential upcoming sale of the county home. And that's pretty close to verbatim is how he phrased it. He said potential or possible upcoming sale. What he didn't say was the sale, the auction that's scheduled next week. Not a peep about that. When they put the auction, not a peep. So, and the boundary survey is another thing we should come back to, and how they botched that. So when they put this by law, they're required to advertise it 2 weeks apart, with an advertisement in a publication for the area. I forget the exact term, local publication for the area, publication distributed in the area, something along those lines. So they did the absolute bare minimum for notifying the property. And when they listed the property in the newspaper, when they listed it as the actual tax listing of the property. So every single time I have ever heard Commissioner Cora refer to the property, it was always the county home on State Road 2, the property on State Road 2. The actual tax property itself, that taxable address, is on Ziegler Road, which is not State Road 2.
Right.
So 5 acre being listed for a building in 5 acres for sale on Ziegler Road. I don't think anyone in their right mind would equate that, or reading that would even equate that to be the sale of the county home.
Right.
Now one of the things that really irks me is that anytime there's any kind of little event that's one of their pet projects or something, they'll say, oh, well, next week is this event, do that. Next week is, we're celebrating, which there's nothing wrong with it, but, we're celebrating first responders, for example.
Right.
Pointing out the county, nothing wrong with that. I think it's a great idea to point out, next week is, this or that. Not a peep at the commissioners' meeting, literally 6 days before the sale of the county auction, that it was the next week, nothing, absolutely nothing. So in my opinion, they snuck it in. Did they follow the minimum letter of the law? It appears that they did. But every single thing that they seem to do is the minimum they can to get by.
Right.
Now, when it came to Dr. Cora motioning for this boundary survey, they landlocked. Because of his motion and what he did, they landlocked almost 3 acres of land behind the county home. It's dead land. You can't get. There's no way to access this.
Yeah, there's no access, right?
Because it's blocked off by residential homes on the other side. So it's just this chunk there that's behind it. Now, what are they going to? Who is going to want to buy that 2.7 acres, other than perhaps the people who bought the county home itself? Which, again, $50,000 for that massive historical building.
That's ridiculous.
You could clear just level the county home, level it, and sell the property for more than $50,000. It's insane to me what happened.
Prime location.
And at best, in my opinion, what happened at best is its incompetence.
Yeah.
And
I would agree with you. Yeah, at worst, there are many things that can be looked at. The bare minimum, though, I agree with you. At bare minimum, incompetence. We have a real asset of the county that at very least, like you said, you were getting $600,000 bids for, and suddenly in a very short space of time, it sold for a ridiculously low amount, $50,000. I mean, for that is ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous.
Absolutely. Now it does theoretically, depending on what's going to happen with the building and the property. Allegedly, it seems like they may be wanting to do turn it into some sort of bed and breakfast. I'm not sure how that's going to work out and try and maintain the home. If that is the case, it's going to be good, but at the same time, they've completely rolled the dice with this property. There's absolutely nothing in the terms of the sale that says what, if anything, they can or can't do to the building. They can do absolutely anything to it. They could, like I said, strip it down to the foundation and put a Dollar General there if they wanted to. It's just insane to me that something that is so significant to the history of this county, and so important. And there were so many different opportunities that were dropped. There was a lady, and her name slips my mind at the time, who kind of spearheaded some of the efforts trying to save the barn, which is next to it, the county barn, which is there now, which it doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense to have that barn just sitting there. I mean, yes, it is nice and was rehabbed, but now it's just there, and there's no home next to it. Or at least they're not together anymore.
Right.
But she spearheaded that effort, and she was spearheading some efforts to get investors from downstate to come in and turn it into possible home for veterans, which I think would have been the ideal outcome for that. And there were several investors that wanted to come up that, with a track record of doing this in other places, respected companies, who wanted to come up and see them, but yet they were refused by the county building folks. at the time to go in and see it. And the excuse there was that, oh, well, it's unsafe, and we had a county employee who twisted their ankle or something there. At the same time, if it was unsafe for them to come, how was it not unsafe for the bidder who did come to actually go there and tour the property? It just makes no sense. And no one, and unfortunately, I was not at that meeting where that lady was, because this was just when she spoke. I have been going to several of the commissioners' meetings up until this COVID-19 thing. I've been watching them from home instead. I've been live streaming them, just try and stay within some of the social distancing guidelines, be a little responsible with that. I would have loved to have been there in person and been able to have called the building inspector folks out on that and asked them why it was okay for this person but not for someone else. It just the responses that they give, and it's the same thing with almost anything. They give out these just ridiculous answers to questions, and then no one ever questions them on it. And some of that turns out to just the citizenry not showing up. It's as a citizen, whether, and I know in your district you're looking at Lake Porter and a section of LaPorte County, you can go to your county commissioners meetings and county council meetings. Go to the meetings, show up. In LaPorte County, they're held twice a month. First and third Wednesday of the month. The first one's in the morning, the second one's in the evening at 6 p.m.
Okay.
And although I'm not sure exactly how much guests they're having right now with what's going on, I know they're in a transitional phase. So, but at the same time, show up to those meetings just to experience one or two, to see them in person, see the relationship between the county commissioners up there and whatever department heads are there, and also whatever the county attorney is there, to see that relationship and what happens there. It's very disturbing to me, especially when you see for example, the former president of the commissioners, as well as Commissioner Cora, Vice President Commissioner Cora. They don't even understand basic rules, Robert's Rules of Order, for their own meetings. They have to rely on counsel to understand that. They don't even have a basic understanding of it. At one point during one of the events that I went to, they tried to shut down public comment because they had removed part of the ordinance. They removed part of the ordinance from the meeting, from the agenda just before the earlier in the day, so it wasn't on the agenda for that night. So of course hundreds of people turned up. They were packed out of the building, so they wanted to try and prevent people from speaking.
Wow.
And they tried to shut down comments when they let one or two go, and there was a young lady. She was, if I had to guess, she was about 13 or 14 years old, who went up to the podium to speak about how this would affect her. She was part of the FFA, Future Farmers of America, and also 4-H, and I forget exactly what she was about to speak on. But I was there with my family as well, and my daughters, and I was sitting right in the aisle right next to her, and she started to speak, and that's when they tried to shut down public comment and say because it wasn't on the agenda they needed to speak. And this young lady who was there, like I said, 13 or 14, her shoulders just slumped and she turned around, and I couldn't sit there. So there's actually a photo on one of the news sites of me pointing and with this angry look on my face. If you go to, I forget which website, which news article, but someone from the media was there and took a picture of me when I did. I looked like I'm pretty angry, and I was pretty angry.
Well, I understand why.
And I called out a point of order that it was Commissioner Cora who had again. Who had by voting to table this resolution, he by default added it to the agenda in new business, so it was on the agenda. Yeah. And of course, when I did that, at the time, then the commissioners, Cora and the other one, they looked over, because there's only two there that day. They looked over at the county attorney, and the county attorney looks at me, looks at them. He literally throws his hands up and pushes his chair back. And the public comments went on for another 45 minutes.
Good.
As about at least 40 or 50 more people spoke, and not even everybody spoke. They just people just stopped going up there, because at that point everybody was repeating themselves. Those are some of the things that first of all, as commissioner, this is another thing that I want to see changed. Under the current rules, which are loosely enforced depending on what they want to hear and who they want to hear from, the current rules, you're allowed 2 minutes of public comment on agenda items only. That's
2
it.
minutes?
2 minutes. So what I would like to see changed is, I would like to see those rules changed to where you would be allowed 2 minutes of public comment on non-agenda items. Okay. And on agenda items, you would be allowed 3 minutes. And then any single commissioner could give additional time to whoever was speaking to let them finish if they needed additional time. And I think that would be significantly more fair. I mean, one of the most important facets of our government is not just freedom of speech, but redress of government. And if you're able to shut down comments, one of the they tried to shut down comments in another in another meeting I was at, because everyone was repeating themselves. Well, what? Everyone has a right to speak, and if they want to take their time to speak their concern, maybe it sounds like everyone else's, but it's their own opinion. And if they're not allowed to speak, that's insane to me, and I can't stand it. And if this was going to change, certainly would it, if and I'm sure, Commissioner Core is going to try and say, well, I listen to people and they can call me on the phone. Sure, but you can say whatever you want to them in private, and you can turn around and be up there the next day and say, well, I only received 2 calls against, but 100 calls in favor. Well, guess what? If you're at that meeting where you've literally got hundreds of people turning out and every single one of them is against, where are all the people, or for it, right? Where are all the other people on the other side? They just magically called you on the phone, but it was so important but they couldn't show up to the meeting at all. Right. But yet everyone else could. And the shenanigans in this county has to stop, and somebody's got to stop it. And Edmund Burke said the only way for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing, and I can't sit idly by anymore. I can't.
Yeah. Well, that's actually one of my favorite quotes as well. And we need far more people to stand up, and at the very least, for those people who aren't willing to stand up and run for office and take the chances and take the attacks and all the stuff that goes along with that, show up to these meetings. Show up to these meetings and demand accountability from the politicians and the people that are supposed to be representing you. Demand that they answer these questions. Demand that they speak to you like a regular person and not like someone beneath them. So it's good to see that there are people that are getting out there and trying to make a difference. The county home, just the story of that alone tells you that there's something very, very wrong in our government here in LaPorte County. That something so precious to the county, even before you figure everything else, the simple value of the property itself, the property and the home on it, for the county, the county did not come out well in that deal. And a single bidder at a rushed, in my opinion, a kind of under the table, keep it quiet kind of a sale, says that there's something wrong there. And we, obviously we don't have any proof that anything shady happened, other than it certainly happened quickly and quietly. It
did. And, like I said, it does appear that the minimum legal requirements probably were fulfilled. At the same time, the county deserves better than that, especially when you can talk about, telling people to, go support this pet project or one of the other commissioners, and they take time to, in their commissioner comments, to say these different things to purposely slide that in under the radar. When the initial vote was made to authorize the sale of the county home, the auction, when that was made back in 2019, the sale date for that was supposed to be, they didn't set an original sale date, not at the very beginning that I'm aware of, but they referred to it as sometime in the spring. Now, I'm not sure when the middle of February became spring, but apparently when you have the one Republican commissioner out of town on vacation, all of a sudden, spring is now early mid-February. So.
Right. And that's, that's a good point. I'm actually going to show here, for those who are not aware of it, I'm going to bring up the Board of Commissioners here. so everyone can see who is actually on the board at this time. Let me make sure that it's being shared. There we go. So currently, it is made up of, I guess it's Brilson Matthias now, Dr. Cora, and Mr. Mrozinski. Like you said, Mr. Mrozinski was on vacation at the time, and it is convenient to me that it was at that occasion that suddenly it was critically important for the county home to be sold right then.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, same thing with that boundary survey that Commissioner Cora motioned for and voted in favor of the week before, with no mention of the sale being the next week. And then, of course, at his direction, with that motion, they landlocked, roughly 3 acres of land behind the county home that's worthless, for any single person who doesn't have some sort of land connecting that, to try and purchase. It makes no sense.
Right.
I can't imagine that anybody wouldn't have immediately looked at that, because you can easily look on the GIS through Beacon and look at it and tell it's glaring. It stands out. You can't miss that. And so that tells me that it wasn't even looked at. It must have been just rubber stamped, by the two commissioners.
Right, because in essence, the land that is now, like you talked about, landlocked, there's no way to access that. So the only value would be to sell it to the person who bought the county home, or to sell it to someone who already has property adjacent to it, because there are, right-of-way constraints that are necessary in order, to even sell a property. Yeah. So it's kind of, once again, has forced the county into an unpleasant type of situation with potentially very valuable land.
Yeah, absolutely. I would think that whoever owned the property, that the new owners of the property would want to acquire that land behind them, because there's some water access involved there to that large marsh and body of water that's behind there. But of course, if they're the only ones who would be able to really access it and utilize it, then they could bid $1 on it, and who else is who realistically would bid against them, other than possibly the 1 or 2 residents that have access bordering up behind it.
Right.
It limits your pool of bidders to basically 3 people, I think. I would have to look and see exactly where the connection is.
Yeah.
No more than 5. Probably 3, maybe 4.
Yeah, a handful of people that would have access to it, and likely, again, we're looking at something that's at the very least incompetence driven, and at the worst, we can see where it leads. Yeah. So let me ask you this: you and I had the opportunity to go in the St. Patrick's Day parade right before they shut everything down, and we got to to meet some of the voters and shake hands and all that stuff. And then right after that, it was nope, can't do that. How has this affected your campaign? Like, obviously, getting out and meeting people is a big thing for people running for office. What changes have you had to make?
So yeah, a lot of my plans were a lot of different events that I did want to go to. There was the LaPorte the fairgrounds here, Pioneerland does an annual pork chop dinner, which they weren't able to do. The local farm bureau, for example, has a wonderful meet and greet every year. That was canceled. That was another event that I wasn't able to do. There was an event with the NAACP up in Michigan City, northern end of the county, that got canceled. I wasn't able to attend that. So there's been a number of different things that have been canceled because of that. As far as for an online presence, I've been getting a lot of messages. I've been, going back and forth, emailing people and stuff like that, hearing concerns of the residents and stuff that way. I'd encourage everybody to reach out to me on our Facebook page. The campaign page is facebook.com/Joe Haney official. I couldn't take /Joe Haney because that was apparently already taken by another Joe Haney somewhere. So I just went with that one, so I wouldn't be tied down with that. You can also email me anytime at joe4laporte@gmail.com. Just JOE4laporte@gmail.com. And And if there's any questions that I can't answer over email or through Facebook, Messenger or anything like that, I'm more than happy to anybody who asks for it to give my phone number out to you and converse with you that way as well if there's something you want more topic on. I don't publish it out on the page on its own. I'll direct message it to anybody who asked for it or wants it, or email it to you. But as far as putting my phone number out there on a direct page where it can be searched by a bunch of bots and added to God knows how many, call lists and stuff like that, I'd rather not.
Right. I don't blame you.
Get a lot of spam phone calls, so that's why it's not published out there. But anybody who asks for it, I'm more than happy to give you my number so we can talk that way. If you'd rather text and you don't want to talk voice, that's perfectly fine too. Messenger, email, whatever the case may be.
Right. So I put the link for it. I think that's the right one there in the comments. Take a look there and make sure that looks right. And then he said you can email him, reach out to him by all means, because we have to become informed voters. I'm just as guilty as everybody else of just kind of giving a quick browse through of what people are running and not learning more about them. We know here in LaPorte County that things are not right, and not just LaPorte County, but Northwest Indiana in general. There's a whole lot of backroom friendships and deals that shouldn't be happening, whether it's intentional or not. It needs to change, and the only way we're going to change things is within the system. You can't change it from outside. You can demand accountability, you can demand transparency, but unless we have people that are willing, like Joe, to get in there and actually make people part of the solution, we're going to keep getting the same results. So I really appreciate you coming out, Joe. If there's anything else that you want to let people know before kind of the show ends, by all means.
Sure, absolutely. Well, thanks again for having me on. I really appreciate it. It's great to talk with you here, and if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Topics that may interest you or concern you as well. The most important thing, and I've had a pocket copy of the Constitution for a very long time, and the most important thing is being accountable, and not just accessible, but accountable to. Nope, and there it goes again. And accountable to the public. And I really think we need a drastic, desperate change in this county, especially with the things that we've seen. We've seen so many different attacks, not just on our personal rights, our property rights. There needs to be distinct change, and I think myself coming from outside the political system, I've never held a political office before. I've never wanted to. But
I'm with you.
I think I'm more than well qualified as far as from a managerial aspect and oversight aspect from the various positions I've held in my life in the private sector to be able to do very well with this. I think I understand, living in a more rural area, that having lived both suburbs and now in a more rural area of the county, I understand the various needs of the entire county, and I think it's important. And as well, I'm pretty sure I'll be the most pro liberty candidate that LaPorte County possibly has ever seen, and probably the only candidate in LaPorte County who's received an A rating, or will receive hopefully soon. That's going to be coming through from the GOA as well. So.
Okay, awesome. I'm looking forward to that. So thanks again for joining us. I urge everyone to look up Joe if you're in LaPorte County, if you're going to be voting, which if you live in LaPorte County, you should be voting.
Absolutely.
Not just LaPorte County, but anywhere. You should definitely be voting. So thank you again for joining us. Go to Joe Haney Official on Facebook and learn more about him. Hey, you got my vote, Joe.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You bet. Oh, let everybody. Are you running? So in the primary, you're running unopposed, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so yeah, go vote in the primary anyway.
Yeah, vote in the primary. There's a bunch of different people who are running. I would say definitely do your research on the candidates. There's going to be a couple primary runoff spots. Do your research on the candidates. Find the one that best fits your point of view on how you think things should be moving forward. If they're an incumbent, take a look at their record and their history for what they've done. and see if that lines up with your values and your judgments, and go from there.
Absolutely, absolutely. So again, thanks for joining us, and I wish you luck. You're obviously unopposed in the primary, but for the general, maybe between now and then we can have you back on.
I appreciate it. It's going to be a hard fought race in the general election.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of there's deep pockets for my opponent. There's an insane amount of money that comes from downstate that funnels up here, and again, that raises questions. Why is so much money coming from downstate, Marion County way up here to northern Indiana and LaPorte County? Why is all that money flooding in to back my opponent? At least in previous races, I would assume it's going to be the same way this time. We even see my opponent already has billboard, even though he's unopposed in the primary election as well. He's already got billboards up in the county, saying reelect Cora. First, I think it probably scares him that he believes I have a chance to defeat him, and I know if I can, if we can get, especially South County and the more rural areas, the eastern parts of the county, to turn out and make their voice heard, I feel like I definitely will be victorious in November. It's just getting people out there motivated, getting them to learn about the issues. If we can get them to learn about the issues and what's happened here, I think that the general election writes itself, and I don't think he stands a chance. It's just getting people educated on what's happened here in this county under his watch, and the massive failures and lack of accountability.
Oh, absolutely. That's one thing I predict. No matter what else happens, I think we're going to see record turnout for the 2020 election.
I hope so.
Thanks again for joining us, Joe. I'm going to drop you from the stream, but you're welcome to hang out as long as you like and watch us. So appreciate it.
I'd love to. Thanks again.
Of course.
Good luck.
Of course. All right. So that was Joe Haney. He's running for LaPorte County Commissioner for District 3, which they all kind of share the county thing there. So I dropped the link to the county commissioner website and what they do, what all their responsibilities are. It's a lot. It's a lot of things that they're in charge of. Ordinances are hugely important for the county in a lot of ways. So I urge everyone that lives in LaPorte County to check out Joe Haney. We have to have some real meaningful change in this county. We see what's going on. I mean, we see it, right? On all levels, from the federal all the way down to the local, until we start getting people that are willing to step up, that are willing to show up to meetings, to demand accountability, to put themselves out there and run for office the way that Joe is, the way that I am. Nothing's going to change, guys, gals, men, women, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be stuck in the same rut that we've always been stuck in. We see what's going on right now, right? With our rights and being superseded by current events. Let's just say that, right? The rights aren't superseded. They're God-given rights. The Bill of Rights doesn't grant us rights. It protects them from government. It keeps the government at bay. And there's some new developments nowadays. As a matter of fact, earlier in the comments, we saw that, I will put it up on screen. I didn't get a chance to, before Mr. Wells stated that they just released four sealed pages of Flynn documents with 11 more to be released. I'm going to be looking into that as soon as the stream is over. That's just one example of what's going on in our government, right? Michael Flynn was General Flynn, a patriot that was so horribly mistreated, that was set up. I want to see what happens with this. I want to see him fully exonerated. I'd love for him to be back in the administration. But thanks everybody for coming out and listening to Joe tell us his platform, what he stands for, and what's going to be happening with, or what has happened with, like, the county home For those of you that are not aware, that's a big deal. It's a very big deal, and it's an example of, at minimum, right, at the bare minimum, incompetence. At the worst case scenario, friends of friends who are the only betters, right? So thanks everybody for coming out. Tomorrow is a surprise. No, tomorrow we're just going to hang out. We're going to chat. I'm going to see if a couple of people can join us. The live stream actually may start late. I'm not sure yet. I have a meeting that's scheduled earlier that may run over. If that's the case, then I'll just have to reset it. So might miss the Facebook time. What I'll do is I'll just adjust the time though. But I appreciate it, everybody. Thank you for coming out. God bless you, and God bless the USA.
If you'd like to support the show, please visit our Patreon at patreon.com/Dion's Daily Dose. This has been Dion's Daily Dose, hosted by Dion Bergeron. Executive producers, Sean Holgram and Michael Beebe. Copyright 2020. Dion's Daily Dose, all rights reserved.